Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Welcome to New York and the 2023 U.S. Open, where spectacular awaits. Hallowed grounds that have inspired generations of tennis fans everywhere, who have been witness to incredible matches from the greatest legends of the game. The home of the epic night matches, with that New York-infused energy from the crowd that is unrivaled by any other venue, where memories are waiting to be created in every corner. It's an electricity you don't just see or hear, it's one you feel. This is the U.S. Open, and this is Courtside, the official podcast for the U.S. Open. And here's your host, Marc Stern.
Hello and welcome to Courtside. Thank you so much for tuning in as we leave day 10 behind us with the semifinal matches all set. And before we dive into the show proper, I need to make a quick correction from yesterday's show. When I was talking about John McEnroe, I said just look at his record in 1985. It's one of the greatest years ever. I was wrong. It was actually 1984 when he went an amazing 82-3. So yeah, look that up and tell me if somebody's had a better season, because they haven't. And it was great to see that he's feeling better and he's back in the booth. So welcome back, John, and congratulations belatedly on that amazing year in 1984. So we have a big show for you tonight. As I said, we'll recap everything from the last quarterfinal matches. I'll also talk to Jimmy Arias, who was on the call for the Medvedev-Rublev match, to get his thoughts on that and what he made of Ben Shelton's impressive win over Frances Tiafoe on Tuesday night. And I'm also going to catch up with Blair Henley to get her thoughts on Coco Gauff's chances to make it to the finals and possibly win her first Grand Slam title, among other things that Blair and I will chat about. And Prim Siripipat will take a look back at one of the most impressive streaks in U.S. Open history. So, with all of that ahead of us, let's get into today's highlights now. And we'll begin with the first match of the day on Ash between Jung Kin-wen and Aryna Sabalenka. Jung is appearing in just her second U.S. Open, and after making it to the third round last year, she knocked out fifth seed and last year's finalist Ons Jabeur to make it to the quarters this year, her first quarterfinal appearance ever at a major. As for Sabalenka, 2023 has been a huge year for her. After winning her first major in Australia in January, she followed it up by making the semifinals at both the French Open and Wimbledon, and she'll be looking to make it back to the semifinals in New York for the third year in a row. And she just took over as the world number one. And she came out of the gate playing just like that.
Cross-court backhand, they trade on the ad side. And now Sabalenka pulls the trigger up the line. Aryna Sabalenka has not lost a set in this U.S. Open. And that was a flawless start to this quarterfinal.
And Sabalenka kept the pressure up, dominating things in the early going.
Serve into the backhand, into a slice backhand from Zhang. Here comes Sabalenka with a deep forehand. Zhang slides into a forehand backhand cross-court volley from Sabalenka, who was parked at net, whipped the overhead, breaks to love, and Sabalenka has raced through the first 4 games, winning 16 of 19 points.
Zhang would finally stop the bleeding towards the end of the first set.
First meeting between these two players. Flat wide serve, a good one from Zhang, and she is on the board.
But it was too little too late, and Sabalenka soon had the first set in her pocket.
Sabalenka looking to go 19-0 in sets here in this U.S. Open, and that backhand is long. It's another set for Sabalenka. 1 set away from her third straight semifinal trip. She needed just 27 minutes to race through that opening set against Jung Kin-wen.
Zhang had finally found her footing and at least began the second set on a more positive note.
This second serve, it's down into the center of the box. Sabalenka goes backhand middle, inside out forehand from Zhang. Cross-court backhand Sabalenka, they trade. Cross-court backhands. Sabalenka tried to pull the trigger up the line, but missed into net. And Zhang in front for the first time today in any department. She holds to begin this second set.
And while Zhang kept it closer in this set, Sabalenka kept her at bay, got a break, and then she put the match away.
40-30 for Aryna Sabalenka after 73 minutes against Jung Kin-wen. Huge serve into the forehand, into the backhand. Now backhand cross from Zhang, backhand cross from Sabalenka, backhand into net from Zhang. Third year in a row that Aryna Sabalenka's into the last 4 of the U.S. Open. Trying to go further, going to leave here with the world #1 ranking, and that was a comprehensive performance, 6-1, 6-4.
Afterwards, she assessed how she played and her opponent.
Well, yeah, I think I've definitely played great tennis today. I'm super happy with the win against her. She played unbelievable tennis at the US Open this year, so super happy with the performance tonight, and I just gave myself another opportunity to do better in the semis.
So Sabalenka's hopes of making the finals here, and obviously in her mind going further and winning it all, are still very much alive. And she would play the winner of the Madison Keys Marketa-Vondrousova match, which we will get into a little later on. But first, we had the battle between the two great Russian friends, the 8th seed, Andrei Rublev, against the 3rd seed, Daniil Medvedev. Rublev was trying to make it past the quarterfinals of a Grand Slam for the first time. He was 0-8 in that effort coming into this match, and 0-3 here at the US Open. He also has a tough time against his friend Medvedev, who beat him in the quarters here in 2020. Medvedev, who won it all here 2 years ago, has played well in this tournament so far, but he's had periods in every match where his game went completely sideways. So how would it play out today? Well, Rublev was the one who got out to the fast start, breaking Medvedev and building a lead to 3-love. But Medvedev clawed his way back into the set, broke to get back on serve, and then got another break late.
Medvedev is ready. Left hand on the throat of his white Technofiber racket. Has it on the backhand return on the kick serve. Rublev is there to his left on the outside of the court. Back into the outside of Medvedev with a backhand right down Broadway. Fought off by Rublev. Medvedev has it on the deuce side of the court. Moving Medvedev out wide. Medvedev gets there. Rublev goes up the line. Missing! Medvedev's got the break. His second break of this opening set. He was down love 3, but it's all Medvedev, 5-4.
And with the set on his racket, Medvedev didn't waste any time in grabbing the lead.
Rublev can't handle the serve out wide, and just like that, Patricia, there's the opening set to Daniil Medvedev at 6-4.
Medvedev kept the pressure on Rublev immediately in the second set.
Drop shot volley there. Here comes Medvedev from Rublev. Has the volley attempt with the whole court open and flat out missed it with the racket head up. He can't believe it. That means Medvedev gets the break to start set number 2. A volley that was missed with the whole court open by Rublev.
But just when it looked like Medvedev would steamroll his way through the match, Rublev struck back.
And it slugs into the net. Back-to-back double faults. He's about to throw his racket across the court, but keeps it in his hand, and it's a break right back for Rublev.
But Medvedev got another break, and that would be all he needed to take a commanding lead in the match.
Rublev drives into the outside stretch. Backhand there by Medvedev. Inside out for it. Here comes the pass from Medvedev. It is good! Medvedev responds yet again late in the second. And he's up 2-0 over Andrei Rublev.
At this point, both players were greatly affected by the heat and humidity and had trouble holding serve. The two traded breaks to open the set. Then Rublev took advantage of the suddenly wobbly Medvedev to force another break.
Rublev goes up the line. Medvedev gets there deep in a defensive position. It flails long. Rublev's got the break. Hanging in the third set, even though he's down by 2 sets. He breaks for the second consecutive time. He's up 3-2 over Medvedev in set number 3.
But Medvedev steadied himself and got back on serve shortly after that.
Rublev on the run with the stretch forehand, angled shot. Medvedev goes over the high part of that. Rublev bunts it back long on a short take back. Medvedev gets the break. 4-all, third set on Ash.
And after holding to take a 5-4 lead, Medvedev broke his friend one last time.
Medvedev tried to pass. Rublev picks it up on the short hop. Medvedev goes right down the middle. Rublev has it, and he misses the forehand. Medvedev outlasts Rublev in a New York marathon at the U.S. Open.
And so Medvedev makes it to his 4th semifinal here at the U.S. Open as he tries to reclaim the crown he wore here 2 years ago. And Rublev? Well, he'll have to wait another year for his chance to get past the quarters, and I'll talk a lot more about him in this match with Jimmy Arias later on. So that left us with 2 more matches for the day, with the last 2 semifinal spots up for grabs. The women kicked off the night session with Marketa-Vondrousova, this year's champ at Wimbledon, taking on the American Madison Keys, who was trying to get back to the finals for the first time since 2017. And just like Sabalenka in the earlier match, Keys came out firing, winning the first 2 games and then taking the third with an exclamation point.
40-15 for Keys, who serves up the tee, and it's an ace. So Maddie Keys, 19 minutes into this match. We didn't know how these two were going to match up. Keys feeling locked in.
Vondrousova finally got on the board to make it 1-5, but Keys quickly finished things off.
First serve is in, Sophie. A forehand up the middle of the court to the backhand of Vondrousova. Now the forehand, Madison Keys on the line, and the slumped shoulders from Marketa Vondrousova as Keys has won the first set 6-1, 39 minutes. She does so on her 9th winner, a forehand that clips the back of the line.
Vondrousova was able to shake that off and stayed on serve with Keys throughout the second set, but she faltered late, gave up a break, allowing Keys the chance to serve out the match, and that's just what she did.
Aryna Sabalenka, feet kicked up at the hotel. Certainly listening to this one on US Open Radio. Backhand response is long, and listen to Madison Keys, the come on and the roar from this New York crowd.
After her win, she talked about why she loves playing here and in front of this crowd.
I just love it here. I love playing here. I mean, in front of a home crowd, you can never feel like you can't get out of any situation. And I think just all of the great memories here and all of the super long battles that I've had with the crowd getting me through it, I just always walk on the court and feel it right at home.
So Keys will face Sabalenka in the semifinals. We have 2 Americans left in the women's draw, both of whom have a great shot to win it all. And that left just 1 match remaining between the number 1 seed and defending champ Carlos Alcaraz and Alexander Zverev, a finalist here in 2020. One of the questions coming into this match was how much gas Zverev had left in his tank after a brutal 5-set win over Jannik Sinner in the 4th round. But early on, he looked sharp, as did Alcaraz, and the 2 stayed on serve until late in the set when Alcaraz finally got his opening.
Deliberate with the ball bounces right now. His second serve. Good to a forehand. Alcaraz up the line. Zverev slips, throws up a lob. It lands good. Alcaraz with the overhead. There's your break for the world number 1, Carlos Alcaraz.
Right after that, he put the set away to take the lead.
Toss, serve. Good. Backhand Zverev is netted. Carlos Alcaraz, 12 unforced errors to just 7 winners, serving 50% or lower through much of the set, and he takes it 6-3.
And when Alcaraz got another opening early in the second set, he pounced on it.
Break chance here from the near side. Zverev serve, good. Alcaraz backhand cross, wow. Zverev up the line with the backhand, good. Alcaraz running forehand. Zverev running forehand. Alcaraz backhand cross, good. Oh my word! What?
How much better can he get? How much better can he get?
Well, to answer Jose Higueras there, the sky is the limit for Alcaraz, or so it surely seems. But he still had business to attend to, and he kept up his strong play in the second, and the lead from that early break would be all he needed.
Set point. Alcaraz served good. Zverev return misses long, and Carlos Alcaraz, that is a fantastic, impeccable second set.
Well, Mike Cation, that's what we've come to expect from Alcaraz. And you know what? He always seems to deliver. And it's not like Zverev was playing poorly. It's just that Alcaraz was playing brilliantly. Now, the third set was tight until, at 4-all, Alcaraz forced a critical break.
Zverev served good. Alcaraz up the line.
Oh my God.
Chip from Zverev. Alcaraz drop shot, fake drop shot, and Zverev frozen. Carlos Alcaraz does it all.
Wow.
He grabs the break to 5-4.
And that gave him the chance to serve out the match.
Alcaraz, the serve. It's good. Zverev, forehand return misses long. Commanding, controlling, comprehensive. Carlitos is back in the U.S. Open semifinals. Straight sets over Alexander Zverev. 6-3, 6-2, 6-4.
So another very impressive win for Alcaraz. He does things you just don't see on the court, and he makes the best players in the world seem utterly pedestrian. Now he'll get a chance to battle Daniil Medvedev for the chance to go back to the finals and defend his title. And for Zverev, it's not how he wanted it to end, but honestly, this has been a marvelous year for him as he came back from that gruesome ankle injury a year ago in Paris and really seems to have regained his form. So the semifinals are now set, just 4 players left in each draw. Yeah, that's usually how it works, Marc. You don't have to over-explain it. The women will play tomorrow and the men on Friday night before we crown champions over the weekend. Still to come, my chats with Jimmy Arias and Blair Henley, but first, Prim Siripipat has this for us.
Welcome to this moment in U.S. Open history. There were 3 things you could count on in the 1980s: death, taxes, and Yvonne Lendl getting to the finals of the U.S. Open. Starting in 1982, Lendl would appear in the finals here for an astonishing 8 years in a row. In that time period, Lendl was remarkably consistent in every slam. In the 28 slams he played in, from the finals at the US Open in 1982 through the finals here in 1989, Lendl only lost in the fourth round 3 times. In that stretch, he had 2 quarterfinal losses, 7 semifinal losses, and 16 times he made it to the finals, winning 7 majors against 9 losses. But it was at the US Open that Lendl played his best. The hard courts were suited to his game, which consisted of blistering shots with lots of topspin from the baseline. In fact, so many players have come to emulate that style of play that Lendl is sometimes called the father of the modern game. His first 2 losses in New York were both to Jimmy Connors and both in 4 sets. In 1984, Lendl won his first Grand Slam, coming back from 2 sets to love to beat John McEnroe in what McEnroe has called the worst loss of his career. In fact, that year, McEnroe only lost 3 matches. Unfortunately, one of them wasn't in the US Open final, where McEnroe got revenge for losing in Paris as Lendl went down in straight sets. But Lendl would get his revenge a year later when he beat McEnroe in straight sets for his second win at a major. It would be the first of 3 US Open wins for Lendl, matching McEnroe's feat from just a few years earlier. In 1986, Lendl beat Miroslav Mejcir in 3 sets, and in 1987, he beat Mats Wilander in 4 sets. That would be his final US Open win. But he still got back to the finals the following 2 years, losing to Wilander in 1988. And then he lost in 4 sets to Boris Becker in 1989. And his streak of making it to the finals ended in 1990, when he lost to eventual champion Pete Sampras in 5 sets. Lendl would win 1 more Grand Slam after his domination of the 80s, taking the Australian Open in 1990 over Stefan Edberg, giving him 8 Grand Slams for his career, tying him with Jimmy Connors on the all-time list. With his big game and towering figure, he was the most intimidating player of his era, in a time when his chief rivals were some of the best players to ever play the game. He was also one of the most consistent players ever, and as mentioned, innovative as well, creating a new style of play for generations of players. For his amazing streak of 8 consecutive finals in New York, his 3 wins here, and his overall excellence, Lendl should always be remembered as one of the truly great champions at the US Open. With this moment in US Open history, I'm Prim Siripipat.
Thanks, Prim. You know, Ivan Lendl was such an intimidating player. And every time you looked up, it seemed like he was in the finals of a major, winning a lot of them. And he was always incredibly tough, and certainly one of the US Open's greatest champions. All right, up next, I'll talk to Jimmy Arias about Medvedev's win, and also a little bit about Mr. Lendl. That's next here on Courtside.
Since 2005, Polo Ralph Lauren has been the official outfitter of the U.S. Open. We are endlessly proud to be part of this special history, dressing fans, on-court ball crew, and officials of the U.S. Open, Wimbledon, and Australian Open. To check out this year's U.S. Open collection, visit the shop located beneath Louis Armstrong Stadium, on club level of Arthur Ashe, or on ralphlauren.com/US Open.
A tennis serve allows just half a second to react. And when life can also change in the blink of an eye, we help protect our clients from risk. And always keep our eye on the ball. Chubb, proud insurance partner of the U.S. Open.
As the official fan ticket marketplace of the U.S. Open, Ticketmaster has the widest selection of tickets available, so you can be there live for every match. When you buy on Ticketmaster, you can pick the seat you want, so you can make sure you have the best view of every pivotal moment of the match. Plus, all U.S. Open tickets from Ticketmaster are mobile, which makes getting in on match day a breeze. And if your plans change, Ticketmaster gives you a safe and easy way to sell your tickets. Whether you're buying or selling tickets on Ticketmaster, all tickets are verified, so you never have to worry. Head to Ticketmaster.com or download the Ticketmaster app to find your seat today.
This is Courtside, the U.S. Open podcast.
Really happy to be talking to Jimmy Arias right now. Not just because Jimmy is one of the greatest players of my generation. Top 5? Is that what you made? Top 5?
Yeah, it's like I made 5, but if you want to say top 5 and it encapsulates the other numbers, then fantastic.
Exactly. Well, I believe the first time I interviewed you, I said you hit number 1, right? And you're like, if you want to say that, sure. But I was only
but no,
5.
Yeah, I'm honest at
yes,
least.
Yes, you are. Much more honest than I am. And you're a great analyst. I love picking your brain about the game. And you're just also one of my favorite people to hang out and catch up with. And you were on the Medvedev match, the Medvedev-Rublev match, which, in full disclosure, just finished for us like about, 20, 30 minutes ago. Didn't really seem like there was a surprise outcome. Medvedev owns Rublev. It was kind of a winding path to get there. And I guess my first question is, this year that we've seen out of Medvedev, he's frustratingly inconsistent. We've seen him cruising in matches and then lose his game. I think that's the way you put it in the match. Just lose his game for like a set. Sometimes recover to win the set, but sometimes losing the set. And is it a focus problem? Is it a physical thing? Or what do you think's going on with him?
It's hard to answer that question. I did get a chance to actually talk to his coach a couple of days ago.
Uh-huh.
And I don't even know his coach, so I don't know what possessed me to walk up to him and say, hey, how you doing? But I did, and I said, I called a couple of your boys' matches, and he's had these strange moments, emotional ups and downs. He's yelling at you. There's all kinds of things going on. I said, what's happening? And he said that he goes through that a couple of times a year, different stages of the year. It's normally not at the U.S. Open, but it's happening right now where he is emotional. He is not feeling his forehand as well, his second serve. He's throwing in some double faults.
Yeah.
So he's getting frustrated from those things, and obviously this is a tournament where it's the one major he's won. He knows it on a hard court. It's a chance for him. And so I think it's that extra pressure's been getting to him a little bit. Having said that, he still figures out a way in the end to win every time.
He does. Like, he solves it himself or he puts it on the opponent and gets them to make the errors or whatever, but he has found a way to get through again to the semifinals. And I want to talk about the idea of matchups. And eventually I want to ask you about how Medvedev may potentially match up against Djokovic if he indeed is able to get past Zverev tonight. But the matchup problem for Rublev against Medvedev, I mean, I don't know what their head-to-head is specifically, but I know Medvedev has the edge, and certainly in majors.
It's 3-0 in majors.
Okay.
It's 6-2 overall, but it's
so it's not like a Gerolaitis thing,
No, but I think they played a million times in the juniors, and Medvedev almost won every time.
Right.
So I think the matchup is. You're right. This game is a little bit about matchups at a certain point in time, and you knew one of the matchups, for instance, for Alcaraz. He was in an interesting section of the draw because the one guy that can actually stand up to him and match him is Sinner.
Right.
But Sinner struggles to beat Medvedev's and Zverev's, who are the same player, which is a 6'6" guy that stands very far back,
right,
but moves beautifully and makes every ball. Those guys, you can't beat them with just straight-ahead power, and that's all Sinner knows. Sinner's just going to hit it as hard as he can. He's going to make a ton of them, but they're going to be within the singles lines.
Yeah.
He's not going to get you outside the doubles line. He's not going to bring you forward first. He's not going to do a lot of the things that you have to do to break down somebody like that. So exactly what I thought might happen, Zverev did end up winning that match against Sinner. Now he's going to play Alcaraz next. Alcaraz does know how to break down those players. Even though he's lost to Zverev a couple of times, it was when he was younger.
Yeah.
He does have a game that I think, because he'll attack him forward, he'll make him come forward, not just try to hit straight through him. He'll come in himself. So those type of things. So for the Medvedev-Rublev matchup, Rublev is the Sinner in this story. Rublev is a guy that just tries to hit every ball as hard as he can into the corners. If he sees you in one corner, he smash it to the other corner and smash it to the other corner. It's a very simple thing. The thing is, he doesn't miss much and he can hit it really hard. So it's effective. It beats many players.
I was going to say, against a lot of players, that's incredibly effective, and he's good enough that he can hit those spots. But when you get to that certain player, and all of a sudden it's like playing your big brother in basketball out in the the driveway, you can't get it past him.
At some point, you have to humble yourself enough to recognize my game doesn't work against his game. Doesn't mean he's a better man than me. He's a better player than me. It's just the matchup doesn't work for me, so
Right.
let me try something outside my comfort zone. You're usually going to lose that match anyway because
But you can learn something along the way, right?
Yes, and then you can also try to keep improving those things that you need to beat that guy.
Okay.
So Rublev is a guy that needs to learn how to volley.
Well, yes, his volleying, I don't want to say it's as bad as mine because I don't want to insult him, but he needs some work. I think that's fair to say,
Yes,
right?
the volley is, he would admit that he doesn't come in hardly ever in a match. It's amazing. I get a little annoyed at the stats because sometimes someone will hit a drop shot, you run in and hit it for a winner, and you won a net point.
Right, and
you didn't win a net point.
No, you
the
can't.
guy hit a drop shot.
You had to get up there. You didn't choose to do
No.
that. Now I'm going to reveal something from behind the curtain that we were talking about in the hallway with Blair Henley, actually. Earlier in this show, people heard this moment in U.S. Open history, which is about Ivan Lendl's amazing run in the 80s where he went 8 straight finals. And I just asked you, I said, well, you must have played Lendl a bunch of times. And you said, yeah, it was a bad matchup for me.
It was a bad matchup because we had similar games. He was just, I'm 5'9", he was 6'2". His serve was a little better, and his backhand was a little better. We were trying to do the same things, run around and rip forehands.
Right.
But the accessories to that forehand for him were better than mine. So in the end of the day, I'm probably going to lose. And I lost to him in that semi, as you know, because I guess you did the special and talked about how he made the final every year. So obviously, he got by me.
And by the way, you were a great player. I mean, I'm sure you're still kind of pissed that you lost to him in that match, but there's no shame in losing to a guy like Ivan Lendl, one of the greats ever, right?
Well, the problem is, yes, but the problem is I wanted electronic line judging because I had triple set point in the second set. And I thought I'd gotten a bad call. And, people's, their egos, all the things that go through your head when you're a tennis player. I had come off a 5-setter in the 4th round that I'd won and a 5-setter in the quarters.
Mm-hmm.
That was the second set, and I'd lost the first. And so when I lost the second set in a tiebreaker, thinking I had gotten a bad call on set point.
It's hard to bounce back from that.
My brain did not respond well. It went immediately to, I have to win 3 more sets now. I play 2 5-setters against Lendl.
Right.
I can't win from here. And so I lost 6-1 in about 15 seconds that third set. Even though I didn't tank, it was just this realization that I'm not going to win, and boom.
And I'm sure Lendl said, oh, I've got this now. And like
all of those things happen.
Yeah. But you eventually change your tactics against Ivan.
Yeah, so the last couple times I played, when I accepted that I'm going to lose if I play my normal game, I decided I'm going to try something different. And I noticed that when he played me, he didn't do much with the return of serve. He just blocked it. And so I thought, well, if I serve and volley, I'll have that wasn't something I wanted to do or was comfortable doing, but I would get a pretty comfortable volley every time. So I did that, and both times I had chances. I ended up losing in 3 sets both times, but I made the matches closer by playing a different style. The problem with that is, and the reason I said if you change your style, you'll probably lose, because what would happen is one of them I got up 4-3 serving in the third, so I was just 2 holds away from winning the match, and I'd been holding with the serve and volley. But because it's not my game, when it came down to the nervous moments,
right.
I was a little tight, or I didn't serve and volley maybe when I should have, and it didn't work out in the end because it wasn't my comfort zone. But it still gave me an opportunity.
Sure, gave you an opportunity and showed you a path. Okay, like I can see victory that way, as opposed to I'm going to keep running headfirst into the cement wall, and maybe eventually I'll get through it.
So Rublev is he's going to keep running into the wall for a while, and hopefully at some point somebody tells him.
Do I have it right? So he's never made it past the quarterfinals in a major, but do I have it right that he hasn't won a set in any of those matches?
No, he has won sets, but not at the U.S. Open. So
Not
that was
the
his
US Open,
fourth. Okay. That was his 4th U.S. Open quarterfinal of the 9. He's made it 4 times at the U.S. Open, and at the U.S. Open, he's never won a set.
Does that get into your head as a player at some point where you're like, am I just never going to get over that hump?
Well, obviously you're aware of it, and
Right.
then the other thing that makes it difficult is, I'm sure the press,
I know,
as it gets to the quarterfinals,
always ask the
will
question.
say, you've lost 9 straight now. What do you think, you're ever going to win one? And that can't help those
can't.
thought processes. So, it's tough, but he's got to figure it out at some point.
Yeah, he does. I want to switch to last night's match, and I know you weren't on the call for that, between Shelton and Tiafoe. First off, were you surprised at the outcome?
I was not. I told some people that if you'd asked me this before the tournament started,
sure,
I would have said Tiafoe wins for sure.
But watching Shelton?
But two things happened. One, Shelton's played really well this whole tournament. He's scary, dangerous.
Yeah.
Two, I was eating dinner with his father 3 nights ago maybe. He'd already beaten Tommy Paul in the round of 16, so whatever day that was.
It looked great doing it, too.
Yeah, whatever day that was, I sat in player dining, and I saw Brian Shelton, who played when I played a bit, so we were friends, and we started talking, and he said that Ben has gotten a new string in his racket that he just got a week and a half ago. And as soon as he started hitting with that string, he said, I can't miss a forehand. Every forehand goes in with this thing. And when you have the power and the weapons that he has, and you add the confidence of, I don't think I can miss,
right,
you've got something really crazy dangerous. And I knew that Tiafoe was going to be feeling pressure because he's supposed to win, and he was also a semifinalist last year. And this is the first African-American quarterfinal ever at the U.S. Open.
And he's playing it with now expectations on him, whereas last year he was like Shelton. He's like, I'm kind of playing with house money.
Yes. So all those factors made me think Shelton, if Brian was telling me the truth, that Ben actually says he feels like he can't miss a forehand, that he was going to win. And I actually think it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could win this tournament. I know that sounds ridiculous.
No, it doesn't.
Based
on what I watched last night, he's hitting the ball so hard.
So hard.
And I think that can confound even a player like Djokovic or Alcaraz, especially if that serve is consistent and he can really use that as the weapon he has been using it like.
That is the question for me. And so Djokovic and Alcaraz are the two best returners that I've seen. They can seemingly handle pace and they stay balanced and they put the ball back in play off of huge serves.
Yeah.
If he's not getting free points, I know he feels like every forehand's going in, but occasionally they do still fly on him.
Yes, they do. I can attest to that.
So if those two guys can make too many returns where he's not getting enough free points on his serve to help him for those moments when he's making some errors, then he'll be in trouble. But if he's getting enough free points on the serve and he now can break serve, he wasn't able to break serve before because he was just too inconsistent with the ground strokes.
Right.
He's now playing sometimes some long rallies. He's even throwing some off-speed stuff. He'll suddenly throw up a looper and then the next ball will hit 200 miles an hour, and then he'll hit a slice.
The variation.
He's giving you some variety that he did not have until last week. I mean,
so we're really seeing this. We're seeing him develop into like an amazing player almost in front of our very eyes.
You are.
I mean, I know he made the quarterfinals in Australia, and I know it has been a terrific year for him. I'm trying so hard not to be a prisoner of the moment and say, wow, what I saw last night blew me away. The power and the precision was unbelievable. Is this something that we think is that he can sustain and grow and become that kind of player? Or is this like, I'm just in the zone right now? Or is it too early to tell?
Yeah, I think there's some he's in the zone right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think he believes in himself. And Brian, his father, also told me that after he won that match against Tommy Paul, that night, they're staying in separate rooms, and Brian just said, "Hey, buddy, great job today. Proud of you," something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben just said, "What are you talking about? I got 3 left."
Oh, wow. Wow.
So that was, he's talking smack right now.
Well, right now he's backing it up.
He's definitely backing it up.
I know that was an emotional win for him over Tiafoe last night, and on this court in front of that crowd, and it's something special. And again, I don't know whether
he's still thinking I'm telling you, the kid's thinking, he knows that he's hitting the ball. He knows miles per hour, no one's hitting it as hard as him.
No. And this is the interesting position of a guy like Djokovic, in that Djokovic with the 23 slams and all the records that are too many to count, as he's, moving towards the end of his career, which could be 6 years away. I don't know with Djokovic. But now he's the old guy on the hill, and he's like, seeing all these kids come up hitting 1,000,000 miles an hour, getting to every ball, and he's like, man, I know he doesn't say like I'm getting old, but it has to be interesting for him to see these young challengers rise up and be as formidable as they appear.
Well, I'm happy that they are, to be honest. I was a little bit worried because, we'd had that great era of Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, and then Federer aged out finally.
Right.
Nadal's injured, and I didn't want it to be just Djokovic breezing through every tournament.
No, you need a challenger.
And it was fantastic that Alcaraz was like immediately there.
Immediately.
Yeah.
I thought in Wimbledon, well, first of all, I thought at Roland Garros, this will be the match that Carlos wins because clay is his surface. He's younger. He's in shape. I was stunned at that outcome. Then I said, well, he'll never win in Wimbledon because this is Djokovic's surface and this is.
And that was funny because I didn't call the French. I did think Alcaraz would win at the French because to get to the semis, Alcaraz looked 10 times better than Djokovic.
He really
getting
did.
to the semis.
Yeah.
But I didn't factor in just how mental tennis is. And you have to realize that Alcaraz goes into the French Open semi. He's won one major at that point, Alcaraz. His opponent's won 22. And he's the heavy favorite.
Yeah, that mess with you.
And I think that was a problem for him. He's supposed to beat Novak Djokovic.
Yeah.
And I think that pressure kind of got to him a little bit. He cramped because that's a nerves thing.
Yes.
And then I thought, Wimbledon final now it's completely reversed. Everyone's saying no chance. All the experts, no chance. That was the one where I did think Alcaraz would win.
Then I thought he was going to win in Cincinnati. As that match progressed, partly because I thought Djokovic was going to have to withdraw because of the heat exhaustion. That was one of the most incredible matches I've seen. And I would love to see Shelton in the finals, but if I get an Alcaraz-Djokovic final.
I mean, that's the final everyone wanted before the tournament. But Shelton sort of put himself into the mix.
If it's Shelton-Alcaraz.
I know.
And I don't want to pay disservice to Zverev. I keep saying Alcaraz. I just think Alcaraz is going to win that match. I know that's tonight, and by the time this airs, I might be correcting myself at the end. I just think the way Carlos is playing right now.
Well, yes, Alcaraz is the favorite, but Zverev, he's back to being top 5 in the world.
Yeah, he's back to being Zverev again.
Yes,
yeah.
And that makes him scary and dangerous. Alcaraz does have the weapons to break down his great defenses. So I do think Alcaraz should win, but I'm not. The other thing is Zverev's coming off a 4-hour plus
brutal match. So
there's a lot of signs pointing that you're going to be right, but Zverev's dangerous.
Like any weatherman, I am wrong more often than I am right. But I know I'm excited for that match, and I'm excited to see what Shelton can do with Djokovic in the semis as well. And I'm always excited when I get a chance to talk to you, Jimmy. Thanks so much, man.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
One of the things I love about Jimmy is that he pulls no punches when he gives his analysis, and he's dead on with what he says. You know what else? And if he said he thought he got a bad call in that match with Lindell, I'm not going to disagree with him. All right, when we come back, I'll chat with Blair Henley to get her thoughts on how things are shaping up for the weekend as Courtside continues.
There's more to gaining advantage in tennis than a blistering serve. That's why the USTA works with Deloitte. See how we help it elevate fan experiences, advance business strategy, and more at Deloitte.com/USTA.
Spin is in. The new Wilson Shift racket is made to create mind-bending spin for more shots in, more forehands in, more backhands in, more everything in. So if you want more spin, check out the new Shift racket at the Wilson store, located outside of Louis Armstrong Stadium, or at wilson.com.
Mount Sinai is the official hospital of the U.S. Open and the elite medical services team for the athletes. Visit our booth by Court 15 to pick up your skin tone bandages and to learn about our commitment to serving all. Or check out mountsinai.org/US Open.
This is Courtside, the U.S. Open podcast.
As I sit here in my studio in Arthur Ashe Stadium, looking high above the court, it's one of the coolest views I've ever had. My favorite thing is I've got my head down, either like typing away or looking up some stats, and then the match will be about to begin. And I'll hear the voice announcing the players coming on the court. It's what we call the voice of God. And I hear that voice and I smile. And somebody say, "Why are you smiling?" That's the voice of God. I know. That's God. That's my friend. She's a really good friend of mine. It's Blair Henley. So, Blair, I have loved hearing you as the voice of God here, as the PA announcer at Ashe and at Armstrong. And as I always do, I love the post-match interviews that you do. And I love even more when you get to come up here and chat with me.
Well, like I say every time, Marc, if I could just have a little soundbite of you introducing me onto this podcast, just carry it with me everywhere, I would never have a bad day. So thank you again for that. No, it's been really great so far. It's been nice to sort of mix up the booth work, the voice of God work. I was talking to my dad on the phone the other day, and he said, "Can we call it something different?" I was like, "Dad, it's lowercase g."
Yeah, it's lower G.
Lower G.
Yeah,
G.
we talked to the big G. He's okay with it. Yeah.
That's right. So I'm thankful to Andy Taylor for letting me come sit in his seat for 8 sessions during the U.S. Open. It's been a really neat new experience for me. And then I get to be on court a little bit as well. So it's been a good mix.
I have done some PA announcing in my time. And what I will share with the people, I don't know if you have this fear, you can't mess up. There's no net. That is not just live TV. That's live in front of like maybe 100,000 people, 80,000 people, whatever it is. And there's the terror right there of mispronouncing a name or stumbling on a word, and you never do. You never do.
Knock on, where's the nearest wood?
Yeah, right here, right on my noggin.
Got a few more days
head.
left to go, but it is interesting. I've learned that the broadcast is hearing my introductions onto the court. That goes straight to the broadcast feed, but that's also being heard in stadium. So it's been an interesting balance trying to figure out, the broadcast doesn't need a big Coco Gauff. At home on the TV, you don't need that. The stadium, however, maybe needs a little bit more of that. So finding the balance on sort of the tone and the bigness that works for both has been an interesting learning experience for me.
No, well, whatever you have learned it well, and you've executed well. I will just say that again. And I wanted to talk to you about a couple of the matches. I want to talk to you about the match today with Sabalenka and Qinyan Zheng. Am I saying that correctly?
Zheng Qinwen.
Zheng Qinwen.
Yep.
My apologies. Zheng Qinwen, who put up a good fight in the second set, but Sabalenka just blew the doors out in the first set. Probably some nerves for Zheng. This is her first quarterfinal appearance. I think we're only second time here at the U.S. Open. She's very talented, but Sabalenka, the year she's having, semifinals in 2 majors, gets the 1 win in Australia, and is playing like all the things that plagued her in the past, the inconsistency, the second serve trouble, all that kind of stuff seems to have been put behind her, and she's playing with a confidence level that I've never seen with her before.
I had her on Armstrong, a few days ago. I'm forgetting which round it was, but we were talking about the possibility of her being the world number 1 because we knew that was in play here at the U.S. Open. And, of course, we now know that she will be the new number 1. And knowing that she's looking so good, inching closer and closer toward the final, it makes me think of the Netflix series for anyone who watched that. Her story was
the best.
So touching.
Yeah.
Yes. And the relationship that she had with her father, who passed away about 4 years ago, and they always dreamed of her having a couple of Grand Slams by the time she was 25. So she's 25 now. But I think it would count if she got her second Grand Slam in that 25-year, and what a cool, special thing that would be to say, for her to be able to say, Dad, I did it.
Yeah.
Sort of in the figurative sense. I just think it's really neat to see how she's playing now, the confidence that she has, sort of the zone that she has on the court, and then seeing in that Breakpoint series how hard things were for her behind the scenes last year. And we shot a Breakpoint reunion in Cincinnati just a few weeks ago. We played a 15-second package of her talking about her dad, some of the clips from the show, and she was immediately emotional. So it's still something that's really fresh for her. And, outside looking in, what a cool story that would be.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. And what you get from that show Breakpoint, and I've talked about this before, you get the personality that you don't necessarily see on the court. When I see Aryna Sabalenka on the court, I see somebody who's big and imposing. It's sort of like I don't see the mischievous side of her and sort of the laughter and also the depth and the sorrow that she, all the stuff that she was going through. It was heartrending.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I think it's just a good reminder that we see things on the court and we never know what's happening behind the scenes.
Yes.
We are only getting a small piece of the puzzle. So it's a good reminder to have grace and give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yes. And I would add to that they are human beings. They're not players on your fantasy league that don't exist or whatever. These are actual human beings. And sometimes the appalling treatment of players, refs or whatever, you just look at it and you're like, get a life, man. Leave these people alone, because you say the most vile things to them. And it's not that, they might not react to it in the moment, but they hear it. And that does affect you on some level, maybe years later, maybe later that night or whatever. And they're people. And we saw, I haven't really talked about this on the show, the appalling thing that happened with Zverev on Ash the other night, with a guy making a reference to the Third Reich and Adolf Hitler. Like, what? Seriously, what is wrong with you? And my applause to Zverev for immediately calling it out. And I can't remember who the chair umpire was.
James Kiyothavong.
Woo! He turned around. For folks who didn't see this, he turned around and started yelling at the entire crowd and said, "Who did that?" Like he was a teacher, and somebody throwing a spitball at him. He's like, "Who did that?" And they found him. Like, I guess allegedly they found him. They found somebody and they kicked him out. But that was a moment I was proud of how the U.S. Open handled it, how Zverev handled himself there. But it's another reminder that, fans can get out of control. And when I saw the depth of emotion Aryna Sabalenka, that she went through last year, it broke your heart. But then at the end, it was uplifting because we forget. They stopped filming that thing before the Australian Open. And the last thing you see in the series is Aryna Sabalenka saying, 2023 is going to be my year. And you're like, God bless her, because that's a positive attitude. And then you know what? She goes out and it is her year.
She manifested it. And she's a whole lot of fun. She's just got a big personality.
She does.
She likes the crowd. She likes the crazy. She would probably say she is a little bit crazy. So it's fun to see her in her element.
Aryna, I know you'll listen. We'd love to have you on the show. I'll get crazy with you. It'll be fun. Okay, so she's into the semis. Coco's in the other bracket with the semis. Coco's one of the big stories against Muchova in that semifinal. And we don't know, because we're taping this basically right after I talked to Jimmy Arias a few minutes ago, so we don't know what's going to happen in the Maddie Keys match tonight. Do you think Maddie could win tonight?
Absolutely. I think it'll be interesting to see what Vondrousova's fitness is like.
She has some health issues, yes.
So again, people are saying it might be issues with the extra duty balls that feel slightly heavier off the strings. We saw she had some ice. It was either on her elbow or shoulder after her last singles match. She, of course, had to pull out of doubles. With Barbara Streisova.
Yes.
So I think that's going to potentially be a factor. How good is she feeling? But I think on a good day, Madison Keys can hit anyone off the court.
We saw that with Jess.
We did. So it just is a question of who's doing their best on that particular day.
Well, I'm going to play the game I played with Jimmy, and I'm projecting past, and this is, all due respect to everybody playing it, but if I project out the finals to be Coco versus Sabalenka, how do you see that playing out? Is that a good matchup for Coco or a bad matchup for Coco?
I think that Coco has learned to use the tools that she has more effectively to maybe problem solve better in the moment. You sort of know what Aryna is going to come at you with, and so that maybe makes it easier for Coco to sit with her team and say, okay, what is my plan A going to be? And I think Coco has a lot of choices. I don't know that I would say it's a good or bad matchup, and I don't know off the top of my head what their head-to-head is. But I would be interested to see. I just think that Coco is willing to change it up. And can she do that enough in a match with Sabalenka to get the W? That would be the question.
It's amazing. There were so many people, and I was part of that group that thought Iga Swiatek surely would get to the finals and probably defend her title. And without her, it feels like this is completely opened up, and we've got a really exciting couple of semifinals.
Yeah, I am interested to see the Goff Muchova, excuse me. I gotta get that second syllable down. Muchova.
It's like challah bread, right?
Exactly. Interestingly, Coco, I was just out on Armstrong, and Coco and Jess Pegula lost a 2-hour and 20-minute 3-set doubles match, and I had to wonder as the match kept going back and forth, the momentum kept shifting, and the minutes kept ticking by.
Coco's like, I got to get off court.
Is there any? Well, but it's so funny. After they lost the first set of that match, and I was thinking, this is probably going to be straight sets.
Right.
And they managed to fight back, and then they managed to fight back in the third set. So again, I think that's Coco's personality. She's never going to give less than her best, but I do wonder if in the back of her mind she's thinking, would maybe have preferred to not play a 2-hour and 20-minute doubles match in 95-degree heat and extreme humidity today. So we'll see.
The only thing I would push back against that, and you're right, she probably is thinking that, but she's also, 19? And when you're not, I remember when I was 19, I can go on forever. I don't know. I'm going to live forever. Now, if I'm up, and about for about 10 minutes, I'm like, I think I need a nap.
Well,
regardless of the weather.
Speaking of the fatigue, I did the World Feed flash interview with Carolina after her after her quarterfinal win.
Mm-hmm.
And, I said, listen, you're going to get a rematch with Coco, rematch of the Cincinnati final. How do you approach that differently to get a different result this time around? And she said, well, I'll tell you, in Cincinnati, I had multiple 3-setters leading up to that final. It's a 1-week Masters or a 1-week 1,000 event.
Yeah, it's a brutal run.
And she said, I was essentially, in so many words, I was tired. And
Right.
I am going to be fresher this time around. And then you see Coco, who, again, I think she's going to be fine physically, but it does make you wonder a bit.
See, and I love the players all have the right excuses for, if you're playing a bunch of 3-set matches in heat in Cincinnati, I'd be the guy to get to the finals. You look tired, Mark. What happened to you? You know what? I was watching Ozark on Netflix, and I just couldn't stop. I was up for like 3 days straight. Yeah. You're an idiot, Stern. Well, that's why I don't have any Grand Slams to my name.
Not yet.
Not yet. That's
Don't
right.
give up, Mark.
That's right. I told Sophie Amiak, I don't know if I said this on the air, I am going to be getting back on court this fall. This sounds embarrassing to say. I'm gonna get an instructor, not because I don't know how to play the game, but it's been a million years since I've played, and I want to get better, and I want to get back out there. So
love that for
2024 is going to be my year.
You heard it here first.
The oldest winner of the U.S. Open, Marc Stern.
Sabalenka.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I know you got to talk to Ben Shelton last night. First of all, just your thoughts on that win.
Huge.
That's
sort of the word I would use to describe the whole thing. It was a huge spectacle.
Yes.
His weapons are huge. His guts, huge. And the results, huge. It just was or huge, as they say here in New York.
Huge.
Exactly. So, it was cool to see. I definitely... I was reminded sort of in that interview because it was very clear that there were a lot of emotions. And he's also still playing mixed doubles with Taylor Townsend.
Oh, that's right.
He's on court tonight, actually. And so it's the question of how do you regulate when you've never, and again, it's not that at the Australian Open, that was a big run as well. A little bit different here in the U.S., though.
I was going to say, this is the United States.
Yep.
This is New York. This is your home turf. And the farther along he's gone, the more excitement that's built up around him. And after last night, I don't want to say superstar because that's ridiculous at this point, but he's like on the launching pad for that, for the way he played last night.
Absolutely. And again, it was just a reminder of the fact when you wonder, okay, who could beat the best players in the world, you have to have somebody with weapons. And that is, I think, what we saw last night. We've seen the massive serve. And the fact that he's a lefty also, the way that he's able to sort of hook his forehand, it's sort of the bend it like Beckham, but with a forehand. It's a lot of fun to watch, but it's a big enough game that on the right day, it can do some damage. And I asked him, my last question to him in our World Feed Flash interview was, if you're at your best, what are you capable of against Novak Djokovic? And in his fatigue, props to him, he immediately came up with, you know what? I think saying what I'm capable of at my best just puts a ceiling on what my best is.
Oh, what an answer.
Right? Exactly. I thought that was excellent because
I like that.
He didn't necessarily have to say, hey, I think I can beat Novak Djokovic and have that be on the record. But he gave an answer that I was like, okay, he's got the confidence to possibly make it happen. Again, against Novak, you never know. He returns so well. I don't know how much you talked about that with Jimmy Arias.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing is if his serve is working, then he's going to be a handful for Djokovic. I think he's going to be a handful for anybody if that serve is effective. And if the way he's hitting those forehands, it was late in the match in the fourth set. And there was tense moments. It was like, all right, he's made to play this a little bit conservative. And he's just going for these huge shots and like hitting the very far speck of the corner. And like seemingly it's like I knew that was going in the whole time. Like he just had all the confidence in the world last night.
Yes, it was interesting too. I almost felt like Francis, who is Mr. Showtime, usually came out again against a friend, somebody that he knows well, and was maybe slightly more reserved. I don't know if it was out of respect for his friend, but then I felt like Ben perhaps came out knowing that Francis is usually Mr. Showtime on this court.
So I'm going to be the guy.
And cranked it up by about 15 notches because, I mean, you could have heard him screaming, come on, let's go from Manhattan.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So again, it was interesting, and Francis wasn't able to sort of conjure that energy that we normally see from him out there. But I think it was because Ben sort of put a lid on it with the energy that he was showing on the court.
Well, and the other thing, and I did talk about this with Jimmy, is that it's the dynamic of what we saw from Francis last year. He was the underdog. He was coming in, he's never going to beat Nadal. He's not going to beat Rublev. He'll never even make it to 4 sets with Alcaraz, let alone 5 sets. And so he just didn't have any pressure on. He's like, whatever, I'm going to go out and do what I do. I'll shock the world. And now he's gotten a lot of praise, justifiably so. He's, it's been a little bit of a disappointing summer for him, some early exits in places. But he is still showing the signs that he is going to be playing at a high level for a while. And it just felt like he was like, wait a minute, I'm the guy that's supposed to win this match now. I'm expected. And I'm expected to get back to semifinals because that's what I did last year. And, I've got to have that rematch with Alcaraz because that's the way it's supposed to be. And I don't know exactly how his thought process was going, but that was sort of like what I was reading into it. And, it's interesting how that reverses from Shelton, who now comes in sort of like Tiafoe did last year and says, whatever, man. I'm going to hit the heck out of the ball and see what happens. Now I'm going to have some fun.
Yeah, the psychological aspect of that match was massive. So again, I don't think any of us really know what it's like to have to regulate that over the course of 7 singles matches, much less playing more than one event. So how do you recover? How do you reset? And then the struggle of not actually knowing how Novak Djokovic is playing. We never really know because he seems
so great. That's such a great point.
He is able to just do what he needs to do to win that day.
Yeah.
He doesn't necessarily need to wipe someone off the court. He's just going to play as well as he needs to play that day to get the win.
The only time this tournament I think that I've seen the real Novak Djokovic was from the 3rd set on against Laszlo Djere. Because the first 2 sets, you're like, wait a minute, is there a body double out there? Who's this guy? He's off balance. He's missing shots. And to Djere's credit, he was playing brilliantly. And then the start of the 3rd set, he breaks Djere's started, and you're just like, oh, this is Novak Djokovic. But you could see the glint in his eye, and, this is the guy that's won 23 Grand Slams. This is the greatest player ever. And that was the only flash I saw that. And he was, every bit, the greatest player ever in those last 3 sets. And I'm just happy that Shelton is going to get this chance against Novak. Like, I just think that's a brilliant match. I mean, I'm sorry for Francis. I would have loved that, but man, I can't wait to see. I honestly have no idea what's going to happen in that match.
Same, Mark. Same. I can't wait. I also think the box dynamic is interesting. Also, you have Team Djokovic who's out there doing a whole team cheer at the end of practices. I don't know if you've seen that.
No, I haven't seen that.
They go like hands in.
Oh, really?
And 1, 2, 3 something. I don't know what exactly they're saying. It's like ready break.
Yeah.
So it's the fact that Novak is working on in every practice I see. I've watched a bunch of his practices here at the U.S. Open in particular over the past several years. He is making minute technical adjustments in the warm-up for matches, which I always find fascinating. I asked him about it during media day here, during the fan-facing media day, and he said, really, it's just that the devil is in the details. But it's just hard to imagine. You don't think about the top athletes in whatever respective sport making technical adjustments an hour before they're going to go out on the court to play a match. It's all sort of a fascinating way that he operates, and then to have Brian Shelton, Ben's dad, coaching him from the box. It was fun to hear him, the coaching that he was giving Ben last night. Brian is an amazing human. I almost went to Georgia Tech. I've told you this story, right?
No.
That this really makes me feel extremely old. But I almost went to Georgia Tech to play college tennis solely because Brian Shelton was the coach, and I liked him so much.
Wow.
I didn't have much interest in going to Georgia Tech or Atlanta. But I was like, man, Brian Shelton is great. And
he is great.
That was before Ben was born. So, again, really quality family, and it's really cool to see them in the box, and Ben's sister as well, his mom. It's really neat.
You're not old, Blair. I'm old. And here's
Marc.
Here's how I know I'm old, because I was talking to some of our broadcasters in the U.S. Open radio room, and I was referring to some McEnroe match in the mid-'80s or Connors or something like that. I was like, yeah, I was in like 85. I remember watching that. You do remember that, right? And they were like, I was born in 1992. I was like, what? Wait a minute. How old? Where am I? Yeah.
Oh,
so, but I just love your insight, and I'll always love a chance to catch up with you. And I'm kind of sad because this is the end of day 10, and like we're going to be out of here soon, and like I'll be happy to go home. I'll be sad because the tournament's over, and I'm sad because I miss my summer camp friends. So I'm so happy I get this time with you.
Thanks, Marc. It's too early for that talk. We've got days, okay? We've got days.
She's 100% right. Why should I focus on the end when we still have more time ahead of us right now? In fact, we have 4 more days of this amazing tournament, the best part of the tournament. But always great getting Blair's thoughts on things. And you know what? She really has done an amazing job on the PA and in the post-match interviews. Great stuff, Blair. Well, that's going to do it for us today. So let me thank our sponsors, the USTA, for making this show possible. Let me also thank Blair Henley and Jimmy Arias for coming on. And of course, thanks to all of you for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow for Day 11 and the women's semifinals. So make your plans to join us. Until then, be well, and we'll see you tomorrow.